So let me clarify the concept of VLAN with the help of network diagram. In typical network, you can see here, you might have a network switch, which is of course in our scenario connected to the pfSense, and of course pfSense is connected to the internet router via gateway or via anything. That setup you have already seen. Here you might be having various servers connected to the switch. You might be having various laptops, desktops, printers, or anything that will be connected to the network switch, and even your Wi-Fi access point is also connected to the switch, and then through the Wi-Fi there are various devices also connected. Now the traffic comes from the Wi-Fi access point to the switch. Traffic also comes from the devices on the switch. So why we need to have the VLAN here? There are various purposes of VLAN, and one of the purpose is security and another is performance. Why we say VLAN is essential for the performance? Because whenever you connect any device on the network, for example, once this new device is connected on the network, the moment it is connected on network, it will send the broadcast message to all the devices on the network, which will of course create a congestion. It will first of all broadcast its MAC address to all the devices on the network. Other devices will understand that the new device has connected on the network, and at the same time it will send the broadcast message to all the devices on the network asking who is the DHCP server. Message is received by all of them. pfSense will respond back with the IP address, will saying that yes, here is your IP address, and it will receive the IP address. At the same time, when there is any website open, first of all it will try to access that on the network. This will create a lot of congestion here, which means that your performance of the network will not be efficient. When guest device is connected on the network, we don't want this guest device to broadcast that message on the network. This is a new guest actually, which is not having any concern with our internal servers. Why should we connect this guest to the network who has nothing to do with the devices on our network? And similarly, if you have the smartphones and if your users are connected on the network using smartphones and you don't want them to access any other service on the network, so this is also a security concern here. So one is the performance, where you don't want the traffic congestion to be here. Another is the security, where you don't want the users to gain access to the network. There are various methods. For example, few devices are connected on this switch. There is another network switch also. These devices, for example, are connected on this switch. Might be having uplink cable connected from here to here. It could be using fiber connection or any connection. So that could be one of the ways. But again, if you have multiple switches also here, physically the switch is only separated, but the network is not separate. In a normal scenario, you can of course divide both the networks. For example, if this network is isolated, so this network will be isolated without having any connectivity with this one network. You can see here that both the networks are physically isolated here. And then pfSense has multiple network interface cards. You can of course connect one of the cables here. So these are two physical networks in fact. One network is connected to the pfSense on one port, and another network is connected on the pfSense on another port. Suppose your pfSense has 4 or 5 ports. One is for LAN, another is for LAN 1, third one is for LAN 2. This is physical isolation. But what if you want these devices to have a separate network, guest Wi-Fi devices to have a separate network, and the staff Wi-Fi to have a separate network, and your accounts department to have a separate network, your IT team to have a separate network? Of course, you will not be able to isolate them physically. You cannot have one physical switch for these devices, one physical switch for these devices. That is where the VLAN concept comes. You can create a virtual LAN so that these 3 ports will have a separate LAN, these 3 ports will have a separate LAN, and then you can do the configuration in switch, where you can define that what traffic from this uplink can pass, whether it can pass traffic of all the VLANs or it can be having connection with only one VLAN. So both the cases are possible, which I will explain you once we do the configuration. Purple color are in VLAN 1, and then you have some other devices. For example, this can be VLAN 2, and these are the guest Wi-Fi. Now you can see we have multiple VLANs here. So these 3 VLANs are connected physically on the same switch. Maybe these are connected here, this is connected here, and all of them are connected to pfSense. But what is happening here, that the traffic is isolated. If we create a VLAN, now only this device, this device, this device, and these devices in VLAN 2, they will be communicating with each other. Their broadcast domain will be same. So what is broadcast domain? Which means that if this device will try to send any message on the network, only these devices which are on the same VLAN will accept that, other will not receive the message, which means that communication between these devices will only be possible in a normal scenario if only VLAN is configured. So which means that other devices will not be able to communicate with these networks. So this is also creating a security, and it is improving the performance. There might be CCTV cameras on your network. So there could be access control system, there could be IPTV system on your network. So there could be various services that are running, and CCTV network is not necessarily going to communicate with data centers, for example. It might be only communicating with NVR on the network, or one of the servers where the recording will be taking place, or any of the users who is going to access the cameras. So not all other users are required to have access to the CCTV camera, and the traffic which comes from the CCTV camera should not be in fact disturbing other devices on the network. If the physical network is not efficient, of course, then there might be traffic congestion issues, but your broadcast domain is isolated, which means that any broadcast message coming from the CCTV will not be reaching to other VLANs. Any smartphone device which is connected on the Wi-Fi network, it will not be sending any broadcast message to other devices. CCTV is one of the scenarios, but there could be various scenarios. You can have various services, access controls, even your IoT devices could be there, special purpose systems where you don't want the systems to communicate with other systems. So this way you can have one single switch, even you can have one more switch connected here for the purpose of CCTV cameras, and all the CCTV cameras are connected, for example, here on this switch. And again, their network is separate. For the uplink, they are connected with this switch port which is connected here. This will be having a VLAN defined here, and this port will be having the VLAN defined for the CCTV. Uplink is able to pass the traffic of all the VLANs, and in pfSense we can have the DHCP defined for each and every VLAN. So for example, there are 4 VLANs right now I have defined. Could be more, of course, depending upon your configuration, but we can define every configuration for the VLAN in pfSense. We can define the DHCP server here. We can define DNS servers separately for all the VLANs. We can even define the gateway for different VLANs separately. And we can also define the route, whether this VLAN should be able to communicate with this. We can also define the firewall rules, which will help us to configure in such a way that out of these users, who will be able to access the CCTV. If you want to block the access of the CCTV VLAN to data VLAN, for example, or for the office VLAN, so all of that can be configured. So your firewall rules will now be able to define that what traffic can pass from one VLAN to another VLAN, and even from one VLAN to internet, and from internet to VLAN. So you will have a better efficiency now, you will have performance improved, you will have the security improved. Let us see how we can configure VLAN in pfSense in next video.